Life can push you down to the very bottom. I know this because I have been there. I remember the cold nights and the empty feeling of having almost nothing left. My dream of selling medical scanners had turned into a nightmare. The devices were expensive and doctors were not buying them. Soon all my money was gone. My wife left, unable to handle the stress and the poverty that had become our daily reality. I was left alone with my young son, Christopher Jr. I looked into his innocent eyes and saw all the trust he had in me. It was in that moment, at my absolute lowest point, that I made a promise to myself and to him. I would not break. I would not be defeated. I would protect him and find a way to build a better life for us, no matter what it took. This promise became my only real possession. It was more valuable than any money I had ever lost. It was the fuel that kept my engine running when everything else had stalled. I had to be strong for my son. I could not let him see the fear that was gnawing at me every single day. We had no home, no stability, and no clear path forward. But we had each other. I held his small hand in mine, and it felt like I was holding on to my own strength. His presence reminded me why I had to keep fighting. Giving up was simply not an option. The world saw a man who had failed, but my son saw a father who would never abandon him. That was the only image that mattered to me. Every day was a battle for survival. We carried our few belongings in bags, moving from place to place. We spent some nights in homeless shelters, waiting in long lines for a bed. Other nights we weren't so lucky. The rejections were constant. I would knock on doors trying to sell the last of my scanners, only to be turned away. I would apply for any job that offered a glimmer of hope, only to be told I wasn't qualified. The world seemed determined to tell me that I was a failure. It whispered that I should just give up and accept my fate. But every time I felt that despair creeping in, I would look at my son and remember my promise. He was my reason to keep going. My family life was in pieces. The arguments and the eventual separation from my wife had left deep scars. It was a painful reminder of how quickly things could fall apart. But I couldn't dwell on the past. I had to create a future. Every night, no matter where we were, I would talk to my son about hope. I would tell him stories about a brighter tomorrow, a time when we would have our own home and our own beds. I told him that our current situation was just a small part of our story, not the end. I had to make him believe it, because in doing so, I made myself believe it too. This hope was our most precious treasure, a light in the overwhelming darkness. The struggle was real, and it was relentless. Being homeless with a child is an experience that tests the very core of your spirit. Each day was a puzzle of finding food, finding a safe place to rest, and keeping my son's world as normal as possible. We relied on the kindness of soup kitchens and the limited spaces in shelters. The constant uncertainty was exhausting. I was trying to enter the competitive world of finance as a stockbroker trainee, a world that seemed impossibly far from my reality. I was studying for my licensing exam by the dim light of a shelter, using what little energy I had left after a long day of chasing impossible dreams. I kept telling myself that this was temporary. I had to believe that things would get better. The rejections were like a steady drumbeat of failure. I would call potential clients for the brokerage firm where I was an unpaid intern, and I would hear no over and over again. I would try to sell my remaining bone density scanners, and doors would be shut in my face. It felt like I was climbing a mountain made of sand, where every step forward was followed by 2 steps back. Yet I held on to my belief that my circumstances did not define my potential. I knew I had the ability to succeed if someone would just give me a chance. This unwavering belief was my shield against the constant negativity. It was the only thing no one could take away from me. My son, Christopher Jr., was my anchor. He was the reason I got up every morning and faced the world. I had him, and I had hope. That was everything. I tried to make our life an adventure for him, to shield him from the harshness of our situation. We would pretend we were time travelers or explorers on a secret mission. His laughter was a sound that could silence the loudest doubts in my mind. He trusted me completely, and I could not let him down. My love for him was a powerful force that pushed me to keep going, to keep trying, even when every fiber of my being wanted to collapse in defeat. He was my purpose. One night stands out in my memory as the absolute lowest point. We had been turned away from the shelter because it was full. We had nowhere to go. The city was cold and unforgiving. We ended up at a subway station, and with no other option, I locked us in the public bathroom for the night. I laid down paper on the dirty floor and held my sleeping son in my arms. Tears streamed down my face as I sat there in the dark, listening to people knocking on the door. I felt like a complete failure as a father, but even in that moment, a small flame of determination refused to be extinguished. I promised my sleeping son that this would be our last night like this. We would rise from this. Perseverance is the art of continuing when you have every reason to stop. My entire life had become an exercise in perseverance. I kept making calls as an intern, even though I was not getting paid. I kept studying for my exam, even though I was exhausted. I kept showing up day after day because I knew that quitting was the only way to guarantee failure. Hope was my strategy. I visualized a different life, one where my son and I had a home, stability, and happiness. This vision was so clear in my mind that it felt real. I was determined to turn that vision into our reality, no matter how many obstacles stood in my way. The world could knock me down, but I would always get back up. The day of my big job interview at the brokerage firm, Dean Witter Reynolds, arrived under the worst possible circumstances. I had been arrested the day before for unpaid parking tickets and had spent the night in jail. I was released just in time to run to the office, but I was still wearing the clothes I had on when I was arrested, a dirty t-shirt, a casual jacket, and pants stained with paint from a side job. I had no time to go home, we didn't have one, and no time to change. I walked into that interview room feeling humiliated, but I was also determined to be honest. I knew I looked a mess, and I had to own it. I sat before a panel of executives, men in expensive suits who looked at me with confusion and maybe a little bit of pity. Instead of making excuses, I told them the truth. I looked the main partner in the eye and said, I was arrested for failure to pay parking tickets. I explained my situation with a humble and direct honesty. I didn't try to hide my poverty or my struggles. I laid it all out on the table. My appearance was a testament to how hard I was fighting just to be there. I wanted them to see the man behind the messy clothes, a man who was desperate for a chance and would work harder than anyone else if he got it. They started asking me technical questions about the finance industry, things I hadn't learned yet. Instead of pretending, I was truthful once again. I admitted, I don't know the answer to that, sir, but I quickly followed up with what I did know. I said, but I know how to find the answer, and I am a very fast learner. I told them that I was smart, dedicated, and good with people. I promised them that if they hired me, I would be the best employee they ever had. My honesty was disarming. It showed them that while I lacked experience and a proper suit, I possessed integrity and an incredible drive to succeed. It was a risky move, but it was the only move I had. That raw honesty in the interview made all the difference. They saw something in me that went beyond a resume or a fancy suit. They saw a man who had faced incredible hardship but had not been broken by it. They saw a fighter with an unshakable spirit. A few days later, after I had completed my internship and passed my licensing exam, the partner who led the interview called me into his office. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest, preparing for another rejection. He looked at me, smiled, and told me to wear a nice shirt the next day. He then said the words I had been fighting so hard to hear. Welcome to the team. He was offering me the job. In that moment, a wave of emotion washed over me. It was a mix of relief, joy, and gratitude so powerful that it brought tears to my eyes. I walked out of that office and into the bustling streets, but I didn't feel like a part of the crowd anymore. I felt like I was floating. All the nights spent in shelters, all the rejections, all the hunger, and all the fear. It had all led to this single, beautiful moment. I couldn't wait to tell my son. This wasn't just a job, it was the key to a new life. It was the fulfillment of the promise I had made to him and to myself. We had done it. We had finally found our way out of the darkness. My success did not happen overnight. It was built on a foundation of never giving up. That job was the first step on a long ladder. I worked tirelessly, arriving early and staying late, making hundreds of calls a day to build my client base. A few years later, I opened my own brokerage firm, Gardner Rich & Company, from my small apartment. My happiness was not just about making money, it was about having the freedom to provide for my son, to give him the life he deserved. It was about knowing that we would never have to sleep on a bathroom floor again. It was about proving to myself that my belief in a better tomorrow was not just a dream. My story is a testament to the power of the human spirit. It shows that your current circumstances do not have to be your final destination. I never quit, and that is why my life changed. The journey was incredibly difficult, but every struggle was worth it. The happiness I found was not something that was given to me. It was something I had to pursue with every ounce of my being. And I finally caught it. It paid off because I refused to let go of hope, even when I had nothing else left to hold on to. That, I believe, is a lesson for everyone. Never, ever give up on your pursuit of happiness.
What's something people don't know about supporting creators? It starts with one click. Share this video too. Help us grow our awesome community.